Hey listeners, thank you so much for listening to HRN. We want to make your experience as a listener even better, and to help us do that, we'd love your input on our audience survey. It'll only take a few minutes, and by completing it, you can enter to win a $250 gift card from Goldbelly. Visit heritageradionetwork.org/survey to take the survey and to help us keep growing and improving. That's heritageradionetwork.org/survey. Thanks for your support.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey everyone, Greg Benson here, and if you're a regular listener of The Speakeasy, you probably know by now that I've been working to bring 100% pure, actually good-tasting agave nectar to the United States for a minute. But I wanted to give you a bit of an update. I actually got to travel to the farm where these amazing plants have been growing for decades, and it was just a genuinely moving experience. I got to see these agave in their natural habitat and see what it means to Rogelio, the farmer, to be able to care for the descendants of the same agave that his grandfather was growing almost a full century ago. That's why I'm proud to announce Quixote Imports, a new venture that's dedicated to preserving these agave and, yes, still bringing in the same fantastic, earthy, lightly fruity agave nectar that's going to make you wonder why you've been wasting your time with the crap at the grocery store. Plus, our fans here at the Speakeasy can get free shipping at checkout with promo code SPEAKEASY, so don't wait. Head on over to quixoteimports.com and see what agave nectar is actually supposed to taste like, and use promo code SPEAKEASY for free shipping. Salud.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sing. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Damon Boelte.
And I'm Greg Benson, and it is Halloween weekend, everybody. Well, actually, it is the first of two Halloweekends, so happy early Halloween to everybody out there. Damon, you're kind of like, because you're, I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere these days, you're kind of on the exurbs of nowhere. Like, do you celebrate? Do like kids come to your house? Do you have to have candy? Like, what is it like to live in a standalone building on Halloween? This is an alien experience for me.
Yeah, so usually what we'll do, because we live out in Lagunitas, we go to Jamie's parents' house in Corte Madero, which is it's like, the middle of the, best school district in Marin County. So we'll go there and pass out candy for a little while. And then, but she's actually going to be in Hawaii on Halloween for her friend's something's birthday, a milestone birthday. I just won't say that because you're not supposed to. So yeah, I'm going to be rolling solo. And you know what? I think I'm just going to sit at home and do my own thing, watch some scary movies. I haven't really been, I've been kind of doing sober October. So, just going to treat it like any other day. But, the next day is Dia de los Muertos. Yes, and that's officially not October. So it's on a Friday this year. So that works out way better than Halloween being on a Thursday. So, we're going to get that going for sure. And yeah, man, just kind of keeping it chill this year. I'll miss Jamie not being around, but it's fine because we hang out all the time. But yeah, we don't get trick-or-treaters out here. We're out in the country. It's dark. We're on a spooky hilltop. It's like, you look at it and you see the lightning crash behind it and you're like, it sounds, so it's very much out of the movie kind of. So what about you, Ed?
Well, that's why you don't get any trick-or-treaters. Oh man, yeah. I don't know. Like I've been doing all the spooky stuff. I've been doing the haunted houses. I've been doing the, seeing a whole bunch of scary movies. But it's weird. I think this always gets me with things that are at the beginning or the end of a month, because Halloween is the last day of October. I'm always like, that's ages away. I have tons of time to figure out something to do for that. And then it's next week and it's like, oh shit. I will say I went to a Halloween costume party last weekend. Well, it was it was a weird thing because the first half of the day was kind of a professional event with some people I work with. And then a bunch of those people also, like later on that night, we had kind of like a Halloween costume party. And, during the day, I'm like presenting. So I wanted to look, I had like a nice little blazer. I had a shirt with buttons on it. I do own those, weirdly. I looked, like someone who knows what they're talking about. That was the vibe I was going for. And then I had this whole thing where I was going to tell people that I just didn't have time to go home and change. I just didn't have a costume. So I was just going around in that for the whole of the party. And around midnight, I went into the bathroom, locked the door, put on a werewolf costume that I had secreted in underneath all of the stuff that I was wearing. So like I put the same shirt, the same jacket, everything back on over top of it. I shit you not, Damon, not one single fucking person got it. Everyone was like, who's this creep in the werewolf mask? I'm like, I don't know. The other 6 foot tall guy who was also wearing a corduroy blazer around you all for the last 12 hours. Like, what? I'm giving you gold here, people. Yep. Like, this is my, seriously, I had to explain it. I went up to someone who I had just been talking to.
Have you not checked the time yet, or
yes, or looked outside and realized there was and not only that, I had this whole bit where like when we broke for dinner, I went to a pharmacy, I got a bunch of gauze, I wrapped up my hand, and when people were like, "What happened to your hand?" I'm like, "I don't know, I think a dog bit it or something," and just,
oh my God.
Just totally, it was my. You know what the problem was? I think it was too smart.
Yeah,
I think that was probably the problem. It was too good. And it just didn't, it wasn't, it was ahead of its time, really. I think that was the problem.
Dang. Well,
but I don't know how I'm going to top it. I don't know how I'm going to top it for actual Halloween.
Well,
and to be honest, I might be busy because I also, finally, this is also cool. One thing I'm excited to share with the listeners. You probably heard a lot about the agave company that I'm working on. Our first shipment just arrived in Red Hook. So I sent out the first batch of orders to people. And I'm just really excited about this. I don't need to blab about it anymore. I don't need to turn the top of the show into a commercial. Everybody already knows how stoked on this and Mexico and the farmers I work with that I am. But I will just say that if you use the promo code Speakeasy, you get free shipping if you want to buy some. So cool. There's that.
Very good.
But yeah, nice. It's just fun. It's so different to like hold it in your hands and have it be a reality,
Yeah, I know. You've been working on this for a while too, so that's congratulations on that, and I can't wait to start using it in cocktails in my tea.
Man.
Well, I can't wait to start having cocktails again, but for now, I'll just put it in my tea. But hey, that's a good segue actually, because you've got your agave syrup that you're putting together, and actually our guest today is. I'm really excited about this subject matter because I don't think in the 15 years that we've been on this show, or at least that I've been on the show, we've ever had a guest like a product like this on the show. But we have this is going to be cool. So anyway, we have Joseph de Solis from Maison Solis. These are agave fragrances. How the hell did you decide to do this, man? And welcome to the show first. But
thanks, guys. Joseph de Solis here. First and foremost, I'm actually from Northern California. I lived in Sausalito, but I went to USF. So,
okay, cool.
Hey, neighbors. In terms of Halloween, and Greg, it's not just the 31st. You went to a party last week. Halloween's on a Friday, which means it's going to extend till Sunday. So it's like 2 weeks of that. Like, I don't even understand how people can dress up in different costumes for a week at a time. I'm not a Halloween guy, womp womp, but I am a Dia de los Muertos guy, which is a perfect segue sort of into honoring culture. So asking in terms of where the inspiration came from. So, at an early age for me, 2 things were kind of apparent. One of them was coming from a humongous family, from California, Central California. My parents and my grandparents, all worked in the agriculture fields near Santa Cruz, Monterey, Watsonville area. That's where I'm born and raised. So I grew up around a lot of people, and that meant a lot of parties, and that meant a lot of good times. So my wine and spirits career started very early. I didn't know it was called batching then, but as a kid, helping family create cocktails for 60, 70 people at just a barbecue on Sunday. So there's always been that connection to wine and spirits at a very beginning age. At the same time, I actually started working really early. I've told this story before, but I'll kind of give you guys the Cliff Notes version. I actually started working at 13. And I had to work because I had to support my family and put food on the table and supplement my family's income to keep the lights on. So for me, it wasn't like I was, at 13 going out to buy ice cream. Like I literally had to work in addition to being in school. So with the extra little money that I had, I would run down to JCPenney's or, Macy's or whatever, as nothing high end, and go to the fragrance section. And for me, going into that fragrance section was always the savior. It was fantasy. It was, aspiration. It kind of took me to another place. So I've been obsessed with fragrance since I was very, very, very young. I still have the first bottles of Eau de Toilette. If you know anything about perfume, Eau de Toilette is literally like the beginning shit water, if you would. It goes away when you walk out the door. I mean, I have my first bottles of Polo and Drakkar Noir from back in those days. Again, Greg, you're a little young for that, but that's okay.
I might still have my CK1 stashed somewhere.
That was a few years later, but yes, you're on the right path. Exactly.
Polo and Polo Sport, and then a CK1, and then
there you go.
But go ahead.
So that combined with the fact that, I'm blessed to come from a beautiful heritage and a bloodline from Mexico, reconnecting, through this project that I started, Maison Solis, has been incredible. It's allowed me to continue to play in the wine and spirit space, in the agave space, but at the same time, sort of pivot 2.0, right? So one of the things that I wanted to do, understanding that like I can't be creating cocktails and events for much longer, meaning I'm getting old. I tell the funny story that it was a few years ago after the pandemic when we started working again. It was like 4:00 in the morning, 18-hour day, batched 3,000 cocktails, limping because my feet, I'm just like, okay, Joseph, what are we going to do? Because life is not lifing. So Life 2.0 was taking what I love the most, spirits, in this case, specifically agave. Future collections won't be agave. They could be agave, but they will always weave in wine, spirits, and cocktails into my fragrances. So that's kind of the manifestation of what do you do when you're, looking at life and wondering what's next. So that's how it started.
Wow, cool. Yeah, and I've always loved the connection between alcohol and fragrances. I used to wear Bay Rum a lot, and it's just pretty classic, and but then I switched to patchouli when I moved to the Bay Area. I'm kidding.
Oh Lord, yes. Oh God, that's so funny. Are you joking? Or are you being serious, Damon?
I'm joking.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, that's so funny. It's interesting because this year alone, we were in Rob Report. We were really lucky to be in Rob Report. They did a review on boozy fragrances. And then most recently, Who, What, Where, which is a fashion publication, did an article on the 11 best cocktail-inspired fragrances for 2024 that you must buy now before they sell out. And we were one of them. So super
nice.
We were there with Tom Ford, Le Labo, Byredo, all those amazing brands. We were right there with them, which was a huge, huge accomplishment.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Yeah,
That's
congratulations.
Thank you very much. But the point is that boozy fragrances, the connection to wine, spirits, cocktails, and fragrances, it's a thing. It's a vibe. So
sure.
Well, and that was actually going to be my next question. Obviously that's kind of the, alcohol does throw off a lot of volatiles, and it's, something that even if, you took a little bit of whiskey and kind of dabbed it, a little here, you'd be able to carry that scent with you for a while. So the connection seems pretty natural, but is this these cocktail inspired fragrances, is this a wave that's kind of cresting right now, or has this kind of always been here?
It's been around for a while. I'm a collector. Not only am I a purveyor, I'm also a collector. So I own over 1,000 bottles. I have a storage unit just of fragrance, next to the storage unit of just spirits that I've collected from around the world for 20 years. So literally, This is so perfect that I can talk to you guys about both. Perfume people don't always understand spirit, so it's perfect.
Don't smoke around either of those containers.
Right, exactly.
Well,
it's interesting because it's even deeper than that. Like when I was taking some courses on kind of fragrance, the chemistry side of it, right? What I realized is that the distillation process is very similar to spirits.
Sure.
You literally distill to create oils for perfume is the same process that you're distilling spirits to create, insert XYZ spirit here, right? So there's so many different connections. And then in the process, I worked with a gentleman by the name of Ethan Turner, who's my, let's call him my fragrance soulmate. He's the technical perfumer, the chemistry guy. But the thing about him that I loved so much is that he was a sommelier turned perfumer. And me, with my background in wine and spirits for 24 years, it was literally like a match made in heaven. There was no learning curve to have to explain spirits, distillation, wine, tasting notes, none of that. We literally jumped in and we ran with it, which was so cool because that, very lucky to find somebody who literally understood coming from, the sommelier space and even the spirit space as well. So wine and spirits was definitely lead for us and had shaped our careers.
So this is really cool. So I would imagine, like we were saying, there's a lot of crossover there. So I would love to hear, especially from a technical standpoint, like what are some of the greatest transferable skills and what was some stuff where you're like, oh shit, this is different. Like what were some of the things you had to learn?
I mean, obviously we couldn't drink it at the same time. We weren't doing tastings, just nosing, which for obvious reasons. But it's interesting. So
you can just put a spit cup out there. You'll be fine.
Jesus, can you imagine? I'm going to recommend that I'm a judge for the LA Spirit Awards with Sother, so I'm going to recommend that we do perfume tasting and spit it out. Right? That'll be fun. I think kind of going back a little bit to understand the process. So I've been working in wine and spirits for about 25 years. God, dating myself. Specifically in the agave space for over 20. So in 2005, 2006, I created the first ever tequila ambassador program. It never had existed before, working with Diageo on Cuervo and this little brand that nobody knew that they didn't want to drink called Don Julio, specifically a 1942, that on a folding table in a liquor store in the corner, we had to beg people to taste. So just to give you some context, I've been in the agave space for a while, as well as other, cognac, whiskey, all different brands. I've worked with pretty much every major house in the United States. So, so starting kind of there, right? That was the inspiration, if you would, when I came to wanting to create my own fragrance. I could have done obviously any. So Maison Solis, really quickly. This is Maison Solis. Maison, can you see that okay? Maison Solis is technically a luxury lifestyle brand that's rooted in cocktail culture, right? I created this to bring people together to celebrate life's beautiful moments. So everything that we do checks those buttons. Luxury lifestyle brand rooted in cocktail culture. So all the products that we put out, even beyond fragrance, will check those boxes. I actually started the company last year with my Bar Essentials line. So this is a Bar Essentials line that's made in Michoacan, Mexico with the 4th generation copper family that I work with. 100% awesome. Handmade, 100% hand painted, completely artisanal, bespoke. It's so when you said you were holding your product for the first time, Greg, I remember the first time that I got these, I literally cried. Like, I have never created a physical product in the world. Working in wine and spirits at agencies for brands, we taste the liquor. It wasn't mine. I was working on it, but when you literally put in the blood, sweat, and tears into creating a product, and you get the first one and the prototype, for me, it was like groundbreaking. Like, holy shit! Like, wow. Same thing with the fragrance. The first time that I, saw the bottles and the packaging, it was the same thing. And coincidentally, we launched on July 24th at Tales. We launched on National Tequila Day. So
Oh,
it was
great.
a match made in heaven. Yeah. So we did something that we're calling the Maison Solis experience, which is a sit down experience, about 2 hours, welcome cocktails that bring the perfume to life, not the opposite way. And then everyone sits down, tasting that white glove presentation of perfume and the tequila. And we nose and do a sensorial, sort of training around both of
Sure.
those. So we did that
That's
twice at Tails. It was awesome. That same day, we launched with an exclusive with Vine Pair that morning. So we launched to the world with Vine Pair, which was awesome.
yeah.
Shout out to Tim and all the folks there. And we've been rocking and rolling ever since. So
It's
to answer your question, Greg, sorry to go off on a tangent. So basically,
That's cool.
I took around 13, I'd say 13, if not more, 13 different tequilas that I love personally in the world. Not because they were clients, not because I know them, but just everything from a cascawin, which is earthy and herbaceous, right, to, one of my favorites, Fortaleza. I tapped into the traditional OG hombre, like El Tequileño. I mean, I brought in Cascanes. I brought in all these different tequilas that I personally love, and we broke them down note by note by note by note, and then built them back up from a fragrance standpoint. So something that's interesting for other like perfumes that have, let's say, rum or whiskey, there's something called an accord, right? Which is basically somebody or someone or some company at some point made an accord, which is a base. It already has notes of rum or whatever it is, and you either blend that into your mix or you start that as your base and you build from that. There was no such thing as an agave accord. So for us, we had to start from scratch. We spent months trying to encapsulate the essence of agave in an accord, which is not easy, right? Because when we look at agave, it's so varying. It's so vast. It can be literally raw agave, let's say in the highlands, which is grassy, to an añejo, which has already been distilled, honeyed, if you would, in the ovens, and then in a barrel for 3 years. That trying to capture something that's that.
Right.
It was interesting, but we did it, and I'm very, very happy with it. Those notes will really come out in the blanco. So this is our Maison Solis Blanco. I know. I think you guys can see that. So this is, where am I at? There we are, the Blanco here, which is great. Yes, and you have the one, Damon, that comes for the Discovery set, which we highly recommend people start with because it's all three in one, right? So, so we had to start from an accord. We built them back up into the fragrances. Just to give you an idea, we spent 138 rounds trying to create these fragrances because I just had to get it right. It was my first time. And Greg, you're going to understand this, getting your agave out. It's your handshake to the world. This is your baby. This is your reputation. This was my, justification as to why I had permission to create this. In addition to being in the tequila space, technically I have cultural permission, if you would, as well, being the fact that ancestrally I'm connected to agave as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So all of those things put together, we got where we are, which is Maison Solis, our first collection of fragrance to the world.
That's so cool, man. I love how you put that, both of you, like with your bar tools, with your fragrances, with Greg's agave. It's like putting out, like with Sother, we're here, he'd probably liken it to his books. For me, it's like putting out an album, or even just opening a bar. That's right. Like when I opened Grand Army, that was a handshake to the world. And there's a lot. I like that you were talking about trying all these, your favorite tequilas and mezcals to
not
create
mezcals,
these. Just tequila, right? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. But it's kind of the same thing. Like when you open a bar, it's like the back bar that you put together is kind of like you put together your back bar for these fragrances, right? In certain ways, So that's also like, there's something to be said about that. And the fact that you were you said the Robb Report, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, that's how Maker's Mark got there, or was that the Wall Street Journal? I know it's how Jermaine Rabin, that's how they got their big first press, was the Robb Report. It's like, there's some really, like, they don't really have to write on a lot of things or feature a lot of brands, So it's cool when they do feature like smaller independent,
Oh yeah, we were
new
super
fresh
stoked.
brands.
I mean, what an honor. That's probably one of the hardest publications in the world.
Right.
It's literally, it sets the tone for luxury. So, we were
Yep.
very, very blessed and very, very lucky. So,
Because you were probably
but
in between articles about yachts and private planes,
yeah,
like. So
yes.
another thing I want to talk about, this is kind of a fun thing that I just remembered from my first industry job, which was in the early 2000s. I remember them saying, they were like, and this is, I'm from Oklahoma, and they were like, all right, when you come to work, you got to have pens, a wine key, and a lighter. Because you could still smoke in bars there.
Mhm.
And, if a guest needed a light, then you had to have it for them. But they also said, they were like, they said the staff wasn't allowed to wear cologne or perfume because they were afraid of it influencing their wine choices with tasting or with their cocktails or food. And the thing about this is it's inspired by those things that they told
Absolutely.
us not to interfere with. So it's really cool to just to see how that's changed, and it's just awesome. Let's talk about, can we go through the lineup?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Do we want to start with Blanco?
Yeah.
Seems like a good place to start.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to, I'm going to actually put some fragrance on here so I can open it up. So basically, these fragrances will change. They change about a couple times, every 20 minutes or so, which is really interesting. But just to kind of give you some context, these are not, let me tell you what they are. So this is eau de parfum, right? Most brands playing in the eau de parfum space are around 18% oil. Ours are 20. So they really technically are a good sort of, strong, if you would, withstanding perfume. So for the inspiration of Blanco, I'll kind of give you some context. So the first time, and it's so funny that I'm talking to you guys because over the weekend I was cleaning and I found a picture from 2006, my first agave trip to the agave fields ever that inspired this specific expression. So cool. I'm going to post it soon, but I, obviously looked 20 years younger, which is great.
You haven't aged a day, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks. You'll see the picture and be like, is that the same dude? Oh my God. Wow, he's really gray and he's gotten a little bigger. Anyways, so Blanco. So the inspiration for this, imagine if you would, you're in the highlands. Specifically, we were in Atotonilco, where there is gorgeous, beautiful green, turquoise, almost agave with that red soil, right? That rich red soil that's, pretty much proprietary to the highlands. You don't find that in the lowlands of in the city of Tequila. And, the ants running around, the sun just kind of beaming down beautifully, cool breeze, and magical. And for me, there was this also connection to the earth, to Mother Agave that was, for me, super magical and connected. And that was the inspiration for this Blanco. So what you'll smell on the Blanco, first and foremost, would be the citrus, right? There's the bergamot.
Sure.
There's a hint of a bit of grapefruit. But one of the things that will come through for you on this is coconut. And that is intentional, right? And I'm sure that you guys know the history of coconut as it pertains to distilled spirits in Mexico and its relationship to the Philippines. So I am actually Mexican and Filipino. My father was Filipino, and from the Philippines, rather. And early on, back in the day, the Filipinos technically taught Mexico distilled spirits through coconut, through indigenous spirits like tuba, right? So I put this ingredient, not because it was a characteristic that I actually got from tequila. Of course I did that. But this was also homage to my ancestors and to my heritage. So you're going to get citrus. You're going to get, we also put a little bit of apple in here, which kind of rounds it out from a standpoint. There's some coconut, but knowing that Blanco is not put into a barrel, at least, I mean, there's some brands that are starting to do it now, obviously, for a week, a month, or whatever it may be. Technically, Blanco goes straight to bottle. We had to round it out to give it some form of boldness, some complexity, and some booziness. So for that, we went with a single cognac eau de vie. So you'll pick that up on the base of the fragrance. That you'll round it. It's rounded out from a boozy standpoint from a cognac eau de vie.
You know, that's funny you say that, because I remember when I was working at Prime Meats back in the day, I would, I lived a block away, and, I'd probably be at Bar Great Harry till, 6 o'clock in the morning, and, after hours drinking and whatnot. And there were times where,
really
not
after
me.
hours drinking?
not us. But I remember having to go work brunch sometimes, and at the time we had a ton of eau de vie and schnapps. We had we built up probably, I think it was at the time, it was the biggest collection of schnapps and eau de vie in New York City. I think we got a couple of articles written about it, and then we were like, all right, start giving it away or drinking it, because no one buys this. But what I would do is I would get people would drink it, but it was a hand sell back then, and now people are way more well-versed in it. But there's the Douglas Fir eau de vie from Clear Creek, any kind of Par Williams. I would just go and dab a little bit, on my cheeks or my neck. And they're like, yeah, you smell alcohol. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm actually using this eau de vie, just trying it out because it smells so good. And they're like, yeah, right, dude.
We actually, it's funny, consumers, and Greg, you're going to experience this now launching your company. Consumers are funny. We will get stuff on our website or in our socials does this literally smell like tequila? No, you would get a DUI. We're not trying to do that. Yeah. It's inspired by agave and expressions of tequila from an artistic standpoint, from a perfume standpoint, the essence, and then expanding out to fragrance. But yes, we do get that a lot. Am I going to smell like tequila? No. You will smell like the essence.
It's an excuse, though, if you do. You're like, no, it's Maison Solis. It's this great fragrance brand, and they're all based on they're inspired by different types of tequila.
Sure,
different age statements. Yeah.
Or we can say it's $110 shot. How about that?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
$110 shot that you definitely shouldn't drink.
Right, exactly. That is the Blanco. So it will change a bit. It dries very, very beautifully on the skin. I also need to mention, our fragrances intentionally are genderless. So they're intended for masculine, feminine, male, female, whatever defines whoever our customer that's wearing it. We believe that being beautiful and smelling great sees no gender. So yeah, that's part of our that's part of my personal and our company mission statement. So intended to be used by everyone who just wants to smell good.
I love it.
All right.
Well,
So
speaking of the reposado, I just sprayed some on the card that comes in the.
Nice.
I'm taking a walk in their fragrance section, like you said.
I love it. I love it.
A bunch of the cards with the.
Okay. Yeah. So reposado.
This one to me, it's like. Okay, when I smelled it from the bottle, and then when I smelled it on the card, it's there's so much more citrus when it's aromatized, right? And so you should probably talk about that. Aromatizing versus dabbing, right?
Yes. Oh yes. So once it comes directly out of the bottle, it's going to smell very, very different than when it dries. It's very similar to wine. You want to open the bouquet. You want to let it rest a little bit, right? You want to be able to give it its time and its space to flourish. Same thing with this. So when you first put it on, it's going to be very different than, a half hour from now, if you would. And that's just by default nature of the beast. In terms of the reposado that you're smelling right now, the inspiration for that was the golden hour, that time at 7 or 8 p.m. when the sun starts to go down and you see silhouettes of the agave and silhouettes of your people, and it's just beautiful and gorgeous. I like to say that this is literally the time. It's inspired by the time where daytime flirts with nighttime and the expectation of what's going to happen tonight. Right. So from an ingredient standpoint, you do get some citrus, but instead of bright citrus like lime or grapefruit or bergamot, you're actually getting blood orange. So it's much deeper, right? This is literally where the agave has been roasted in the horno for 3 days, and it starts to ooze the caramel, technically the agave nectar, but this, for us, the smell of caramel, of honey, of agave nectar. That's really important for us to be able to capture that. So you're going to pick up some of that, some of these spices as well. So a lot of spice, cinnamon, pepper. But more importantly, as I mentioned for the Blanco, we had a cognac ODV. For this one, you'll pick up hints of charred whiskey barrel. Yeah.
You know what I'm getting to? And it's something that's really important for me, is I spend a lot of time in New Mexico.
Okay.
And I'm getting a little bit of pinyon.
Nice.
Which is really cool. I think that's
We'll
coming from the
take that.
barrel.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, I got to see, that's what I say. When I smell it from the bottle, I get more of that on it than when it's aromatized, when I first sprayed it. But now that it's like opening up, I'm getting that pinyon again. So, and
this is the perfect scent for fall. It's the perfect scent, winter, if you would. I mean, from an occasionality standpoint, you can wear it in the day. It really stands out at night. And it's flirtatious, it's fun, and I think for me, it's exactly what reposado is for me from a tequila standpoint. The same need state. We try to base it off.
That's so cool. I like how you're incorporating what time of day and the occasion into it, just in the same way that you would with a wine or a cocktail. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. Yep. So jumping into añejo, this is what I would have thought. Well, was actually from Tales and Beyond and all of the seeding that we've done to industry folks. I would have thought that this would be the bartender's favorite, because añejo is a bit different. This was literally created for niche fragrance perfumers. We have some marketing that says, caution, do not wear this if you are not bold enough. There's some marketing that we have that say, do not wear this if you're a basic bitch. Like, literally, this will stun the room. And this was intentional. So very similar to an añejo tequila, right? For us, what this was about is, imagine, if you would, being in like the most exclusive smoky jazz club, sipping on the best neat añejo you've ever had in your life, right? So we had to make this super, super bold. We had to stand out. Niche perfume, as much as like us are wine and spirit geeks, there is a whole world of perfume heads, I call them, or fragrance adorers who love niche stuff, right? They don't want commercial, they don't want practical, they don't want easy, they want niche. So we kept that in mind with this one. For the añejo, one of the ingredients that you'll find in here is going to be flor de Jamaica, which is intentional as well. Also known as sorrel in Africa and the Caribbean, hibiscus in America. Asia has their version. So this was my kind of nod to a global community, if you would, doing ingredients that connects us. So as you know, flor de Jamaica or hibiscus is very much, it's tart, but it's also well-rounded with, sweetness. So that was an intentional ingredient. Also in here, you're going to find coffee and cacao, so a lot of chocolate. So we took you into cognac in the Blanco, the charred the whiskey barrel inside of the reposado. For the añejo, the inspiration was rum, so sweet aged rum. And to round it out, so it was the 25th version, last day. I still wasn't happy. So the last thing we did was add something called oud. So if you don't know what oud is a very rare ingredient that comes from the fungus of a tree. It's very, very expensive. It can be up to $6,000 an ounce. But for us, it allowed us to round this out and make it more of a fragrance. So the combination of the oud, the rum, the blood orange that we used, again, we repeated it in here because we needed that deeper citrus. And the flor de Jamaica and the chocolate is how we got to the añejo. Most important is that this is the maximum amount of smoke. You literally will wear this and you smell beautiful smoke, not bad, not smoke like you were sitting in front of a fireplace, but, a very attractive smoke, if you would. So that combination makes this one of our best sellers. And as I mentioned, bartenders at Tales, we went around, and actually at BCB, I went around, and all bartenders loved this. But an interesting pivot happened where actually women loved this a lot, which I thought was awesome, right? To walk into the world boldly, to be able to walk in the room with confidence where everybody stops and says, "Oh my God, what are you wearing?" That's a beautiful thing. It's confidence. So
I thought for sure that you were going to say that you use some sort of like Isla Scotch in this, because it does have like it's got that smokiness to it, It's so cool.
I love that you said that. I am working with a Isla Scotch company, and I'll make sure that they watch this because it's such an inspiration. And I'm not making the connection because obviously this is inspired by tequila, but you're absolutely dead right. Like an Isla, that's amazing. That's awesome, Damon.
Well, that's what I do.
Well, and I'm learning so much from you guys because I've got to confess I've never been much of a fragrance guy. Like, for example, like I didn't know that the card was a useful tool for nosing these things. I kind of looked at it, I was like, that's a nice typeface, and I sort of put it down. I didn't realize that was part of the process. But
technically it's not, but it can be whatever you want it to be.
It was the closest thing I had.
Yeah, listen, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I wanted to make sure that our fragrance was approachable. Just like wine, most of my background in wine and spirits for the last 25 years have been in French luxury spirits. So, very much making sure that everything is a process. I took away many things like that. Devil is in the detail. Obviously quality, right? But at the same time, there's an intimidation level. Ethan and I spoke a lot about wine. I know my wine. He's a sommelier, but even then, there's still a barrier between wine for me, and a lot of people of color. When we walk into a restaurant, it's just the nature of the beast. I didn't want that for this, right? So two things. One of them, our price points are set for that reason, and also the size of the bottle. So these are 30 milliliter bottles. This is very new-ish, if you would, in the industry. In the last 5 or 7 years, niche perfumers have started to use 30 milliliter bottles. What you find in the store is normally 50, or what your grandma may have is 100 liter of Chanel No. 5 that will never be used ever. It'll be inherited by the next generation and the next generation. This new generation is not doing that. We did this intentional. 30 ml allowed us to keep price points that were approachable. But more importantly, this actually allows you to travel with it. So you can take it with you on the airplane, right? So understanding our consumer like us, we travel, a lot of our consumer is younger. There's a whole new younger wave of consumers that are becoming, not just spirit adorers, but also perfume adorers, which, this was intended for them as well. So our price points, we were able to keep them. If we had done 50 mLs, it would have been double the price. So our Blanco starts at 110. For 30 milliliters of eau de parfum. Our reposado is 120, and then our añejo is 140. So technically, you can collect all three together, like the way I collect my tequilas, for less than $400. So if you know anything about fragrance, some perfumes are just $400 for a 50 ml. So this was all intentional. So the card was perfect. Like, do it the way that you need to do it at the end of the day, because that's what makes you exclusively you. And who cares? We don't need to adhere to these formalities, right? Let's just do it how we want to do it. That was always been our intention.
I love that. And I don't know, I'm so struck by the similarities between this world and the stuff we normally talk about on this show, which is the world of spirits. And especially because, if you think about it just on a biological level, we can smell 43,000 different chemical compounds, and we can taste 5. So much of the job of being, someone who tastes and talks about and writes about and evaluates spirits for a living is analyzing fragrance. And so when you're giving this to bartenders, is there any sort of, I don't know, is there any sort of bootstrapping that needs to be done on a sort of sensory level? Like, is there a different way that you feel people interact with these, or is it just a totally transferable skill?
Honestly, I think it's different. I think it's credibility or validity. And what I mean by that is, bartenders are the gatekeepers, right? We literally are the gatekeepers that I honor so much. The soldiers, if you would, and they keep it 100 with spirits. So, there's no filter sometimes unless you're getting paid by brand.
Yeah.
And I love that, right? So I think the first thing that people ask is, who is this person that's trying to do a agave fragrance, right? And I mentioned this at the top, which is, luckily for me, I've been in wine and spirits for 27 years. Specifically in the agave space, there's also a cultural context for me, right? I'm connected to the culture. This was a labor of love. I had a responsibility to bring to life Mother Agave and the essence, not just the liquid from a flavor standpoint, but from a cultural and a heritage standpoint. So pardon my language, I wasn't fucking around, right? This is very serious for me. I had a job to do, and I had to deliver on respect and integrity. So I think the first thing bartenders, I know many, many, many like you guys in our business. I've been around a very long time and work with lots of them. And they know that it's coming from me, which is the gut check. But for the ones who don't, I think there is this like, hey, how are you going to come into our space, whether it's tequila, whiskey, rum, whatever it is, and try to put out some token shit, right? Like, so luckily for me, I'd like to think I can check that box. So that's the first level, which is, okay, Joseph, you can play in this space. We respect that you are doing it and coming from the right place.
Yeah.
And of course, our discussions about tequila come in. And being that I've been in agave space and tequila for 20 plus years, we can talk about the nitty gritty of every brand and jump into, tastings and all this fun stuff. So, this truly was an extension of my love, passion, and my credibility in wine and spirits. I will always be a wine and spirits guy, even though we're branching out into products. It's all rooted in cocktail culture and spirits and wine.
I love that.
Another thing is, like, to Greg's point, and I've done sensory experiences with cognac, and we'll have like the small bottles of oils from the main, like 20 or 25 or 30, however many different oils from the different flavored tasting notes, and it is obviously it's very important. Your olfactory is very important because it informs what you're going to taste. So I don't know, I've always loved teaching those classes when it comes to olfactory, and then we'd be like, oh, so we're going to blend a cognac now. So, based on what you liked from those smells, like the fragrances, here's how we put that together for the tasting profile. But more than anything, like you said, I think some people are kind of intimidated when it comes to, if you don't work in the industry, but you're an enthusiast consumer. It's like a lot of times people are afraid, if they go to a wine tasting, they don't want to be the first one, whenever the sommelier is like, so what are you getting on this? They don't want to be like, I agree. I'm getting grapes. Yeah, exactly.
Alcohol.
But actually, that's
the first
that's a
one,
fine
right?
answer too, because like it is made from grape. But with this, it's like I always, a lot of times when it comes to describing cocktails at my bars, I always kind of treat it like a tropical menu, where it's like I can give you the ingredients and put that out there, but I can just tell you what the sensation is, and like talking about being in the agave fields at dusk, to me, it's like if I were running a fragrance tasting panel, I don't know what you'd call it. Sure. And, that's what I feel like. Hey, don't tell me if you don't want to tell me like if you're getting bergamot or pinyon, or whatever it might be. It's like, just tell me what this makes you feel like, because that's the occasion, the situation, right?
In all the situations, me as well, Damon, I've done tons of these sensorial trainings for clients throughout the years. And the first thing that I always start with is that, respect your palate, right? don't let other people or other things tell you what is right or wrong. I always say, unless it tastes like tuna fish or toothpaste, everything in the middle is open for discussion. And it's true. Like, respect your palate. You have an amazing perspective. Show your perspective to the world. You're not wrong. If you got apple and somebody else got passion fruit, and what's the point? Like, that's wonderful,
cool.
right? So
that's great. Well, this has been a blast. Like, it's so cool to get to talk about this from like another perspective, but we're still, it's like I said before we went on air, it's like on the speakeasy, the way I've always wanted this show to be. It's very like kind of chill, laid back format of, an interview format. It's like I always say, just imagine we're sitting at the corner of the bar and we're just talking shop, and it's really easy to talk with you about this, especially since, you're from the industry, and like we have, there's a lot of vocabulary and a lot of kind of moving parts that work the same. Like you had mentioned, distillation and blending. Blending's the hardest part. It's to me, it's the most respectable part of any spirit. Talking with a head blender from any company, I'm just like, wow, you're like the mad scientist. You're the wizard, or whatever equivalent you want to say here. But it just, like you said, it took a lot of time to like, test out the different blends and figure out like, oh, there's one thing I need to put in there, the oud. And like, so I don't know, it's just cool to me. It's like, it's fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. We love this industry. We love what we do. We love everything about it. Now we love another thing about it. So
I appreciate that. I also, honestly, I owe everything to my wine and spirits community. I am, new on the perfume scene, so I couldn't expect, the industry folks, the trade, the influencers to just come over and say, oh, we're totally going to welcome you with open arms. I'm playing in a new space. But what did save me and what encourages me and lifts me up every day is my wine and spirits community. And shout out to everybody in this industry who has supported, who hold us down on the daily, right? As I mentioned to you before, I honor bartenders every day. They're the gatekeepers for what we do. One of the things I think, Greg, we had spoken about, or at least, we were going to touch on is like what the way that I pivoted. I was in wine and spirits, and then I pivoted. I had to kind of take a look at, okay, Joseph, what are the things that I love about this business being in wine and spirits? And then kind of pivot into a life 2.0. I think you're doing it, Greg, with your agave, right? That's your next foyer, or one of your company's millionaire mindset, right? 7 streams of income.
Yep.
So my advice to bartenders or industry people who are in this business is to really kind of take a look at what makes you spark about this business. If it's the presentation, right? Think about launching a garnish company. Think about launching a glassware company. If it's the spirit itself, by all means, a lot of competition, but launch your own spirit, right? If you love talking about, cocktails and explaining things, look into becoming a brand ambassador. There's so many different outlets out there that, and if you want to stay behind the stick for the next 40 years, by all means, please do so. And I'm going to come to your bar because you're going to be legendary. But if you want to branch out, I'm an advocate for, folks sort of living their power, passion, and purpose. That's really important to me. And bartenders and industry folks knowing that you can pivot to different things. If you were to draw a circle, right? And it's like the pebble in the pond, right? The first circle is where you are right now. You're a bartender at XYZ bar. You're working, for the distributor, whatever it may be. What's the next circle? What's the next circle? Because the possibilities are endless, that you can still keep one foot in the business like I have, but yet fuel your passion and figure out what makes you tick and makes you happy and brings you joy. So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what does it for me, I think, is like opening people up to new experiences. Like the thing that the first time this agave business was floated to me, because I was put in touch with the communities I work with a friend of the show, Lou Bank. He floated the idea to me once and I was like, pass. I'm like, it's agave, man. I know what agave tastes like. How different could this possibly be? And then I got a chance to actually try it. And, the thing that the way I describe that experience is I'm like, it made me think of the first time I ever tried like real Vermont maple syrup. And you remember that experience, how it almost made you like angry how good it was? We were like, fuck, this was here the entire time. And I've been eating like the grocery store corn syrup like it's sucker.
Yes. You're like, shit, Aunt Jemima lied to me my whole childhood.
Yeah, or for official Quixote Imports purposes, Brand X did that. But yes, but I take your point, and like that's the thing that I love is sort of opening up, you know, people's minds to these new things, and I love that this has actually opened my mind up to this, because this was a field that I did frankly find a little bit intimidating, and I didn't really know how to approach it. In fact, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
I'm going to an event tomorrow night. It's kind of a slightly fancier event.
Okay.
I'm thinking I might do a little bit of the reposado. Does that strike with kind of what you designed it for? All right, perfect.
Absolutely. Great. So it's funny that you had mentioned this earlier, Damon. Like morning, daytime, like we get a lot of feedback. Like this is, you know, Blanco's perfect for, you know, putting on in the morning after the shower. It's light, it's fresh, it's bright. You know, reposado is perfect for that like cocktail hour going into dinner. And then we get a lot of comments about añejo is sort of after hours, and when you really want to take it to the next level and get it in. So we'll take it all. There's an opportunity for all of them. But yes, reposado would definitely be the perfect accessory to your evening tomorrow.
Wonderful. All right, I'm set. And if people want to follow along with your journey and what you're doing, where should they do that? Is there Instagram you want to plug?
Sure. There's two. First one is Maison Solis. Thank you, Damon. MaisonSolis.com, at Maison Solis on all of the socials. And you can find me, if you want to, at JD Solis, JDS as in Sam, OLIS as in Sam, where we got the name Maison Solis. And funny thing about the name Maison Solis, people ask, why did you name it Maison Solis? Well, you know, if I would have named it Casa Solis, it sounds like my, you know, abuelita's restaurant down the street. So we had to play in spaces that allowed us to, you know, expand into this luxury space. And so we went with Maison. So we get that asked often. So
yeah, very cool.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on and teaching me a few things today. It was fun. I learned something today. But for now, that's going to do it for us this week on the Speakeasy. But if you want more from Damon, Sother, and me, you can sign up and become a regular on our Patreon page. Our regulars get access to all kinds of good stuff, including sponsor-free listening, video podcasts, cocktail recipes from all of our guests, including a really good one that you put in, Joseph. Bonus episodes, and a free cocktail kit every single month from our good friends at Shaker and Spoon, who are once again up to something cool with Sother. That's actually, I think, one of the reasons why he couldn't be here today. They're launching their Kickstarter for the new Better with Bitters class, and it hit its initial fundraising goal in the first 20 minutes, which I think is
wow.
Cool. So
I'll have to send him a shout. I'll follow up with him after this. You know, I'd like to add something into that benefits for your listeners as well, so we can talk about that after. But I want to make sure I can incentivize everybody who has listened to this today.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
Very cool.
And one other thing I want to note here at the end is that HRN is doing its first ever listener survey. We're going to post that link in the show notes as well. And upon completion, you'll be entered to win a $250 gift card to Goldbelly. And once you complete the survey, you will automatically win a place in our hearts, because these things really do help us improve the show and other great programs here at HRN. And genuinely, we really do appreciate it. And of course, be sure to tune in next week when our guest is Claire Marin from Pollinator Spirits, who's going to be here to talk about some cool harvest time drinks. We'll catch you then. But for now, cheers, everyone.
Salud.
Cheers.
So you don't shun the devil with your
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food and drink radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.